The afternoon sun shimmered on the surface of the pool, casting golden ripples across the water. The woman sat quietly in a lounge chair, sunglasses shielding her eyes as she flipped through the pages of her book. She had been looking forward to this moment all week, a little peace, a little quiet, just her and the sound of the water. A shadow loomed over her. She sensed it before she looked up, the kind of presence that carried tension with it. She lowered her book slightly and saw him, middle-aged, stiff posture, arms crossed. His face was tight with suspicion. "Excuse me," he said, his voice clipped and authoritative. "This pool is for residents only." She didn't respond right away. Instead, she closed her book carefully, setting it down beside her. Then she looked up at him fully, studying his expression. He wasn't just asking, he had already made up his mind. "You don't belong here," he continued, his tone sharper now. She raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and how do you know that?" He scoffed. "Because I know everyone who lives here. I've never seen you before." She let the words hang between them. There it was. That quiet, unspoken certainty that he believed he had the right to decide who did and didn't belong in this space. But instead of arguing, she simply leaned back in her chair, a small smile playing at her lips. "Interesting," she murmured. "And what happens now?" The man's arms remained crossed. His chest puffed out as if he had already won this encounter. He had the look of someone used to being in control, expecting compliance without question. But the woman didn't move. She didn't argue. She didn't fidget under his scrutiny. Instead, she reached for her bag with an ease that seemed almost amused. His brow furrowed slightly as she pulled out a small leather wallet and flipped it open. She extended it toward him, her fingers steady. He glanced at it, expecting maybe a guest pass, some excuse to justify her presence. But the moment his eyes landed on the words inside, his face changed. His lips parted, the color draining slightly from his cheeks. The words "Chief of Police" were stamped boldly on the ID, her name displayed with unmistakable authority. He blinked, his confidence faltering as he glanced from the badge to her face, as if hoping for some mistake. "Wait, you're—" His voice had lost its edge. She tilted her head slightly, watching him with quiet patience. "Yes, I am." There was a long, heavy silence between them. The power had shifted, and they both knew it. He swallowed hard, his stance loosening. I didn't realize." She finally slipped her ID back into her bag. "No, you didn't." Her voice was calm, almost casual, but the weight of her words settled on him like a stone. He opened his mouth again, maybe to justify himself, maybe to explain, but nothing came out. Instead, he stood there, grappling with the reality that he had misjudged the situation entirely. The man's mouth opened, but no words came out. His confidence, once so firm, had crumbled in an instant. He shifted his weight uncomfortably, glancing around as if searching for an escape. But there was none, just the woman, calm and composed, watching him with an expression that was impossible to read. I didn't mean," he stammered, his voice lacking the authority it had carried moments ago. "I just thought—" She held up a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "I know exactly what you thought," she said, her voice steady. "You saw me sitting here, and instead of asking who I was, you assumed I didn't belong." He swallowed hard, his posture no longer confrontational. Instead, he looked almost small, embarrassed. "I wasn't trying to be rude," he muttered, his eyes darting anywhere but at her. "I was just looking out for the community." The woman gave a small nod, as if considering his words. Then she leaned forward slightly. "Next time," she said, her tone firm but not unkind, "instead of assuming who does or doesn't belong, maybe try asking first." The silence stretched between them. The man gave a stiff nod, mumbling something that might have been an apology before turning and walking away. She didn't stop him. She didn't need to. The lesson had already been delivered. With a quiet sigh, she picked up her book, flipped it open and settled back into her chair. The pool water shimmered undisturbed, as if nothing had happened at all.